This tutorial will show you how to use the OpenELIS Web Portal. First, go to the State Hygienic Laboratory at the University of Iowa's website at www.shl.uiowa.edu. Once you get to the home page, click on the green Test Results button on the left-hand side. Next, on the Test Results page, click on the green OpenELIS button. The OpenELIS Web Portal can be used with any modern web browser, including Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. Enter your username and password supplied by the State Hygienic Laboratory, and then push the Enter key on your keyboard or click the Login button. There are currently 5 screens available through the OpenELIS Web Portal. There are 2 ways to get your results: as a PDF of the final report from the final report screen, or the results can be dumped into a spreadsheet by using the spreadsheet view screen. Let's click on the final report screen first. You can search for your samples by using any number of fields. It usually works best to search by just one field at a time, such as a collected date range. This would be when the sample is collected. Or the release date, which is when the test is released at the State Hygienic Laboratory and the results are available. You can also search by one or a range of accession numbers, which is SHL's sample number. The client reference is a piece of information that is valuable to your organization regarding the sample. For environmental and safe drinking water samples, it could be any special identifier or maybe your company's lab number. For patient samples, it's often the patient's medical record number or chart ID. You can also limit your search by an environmental project ID. If you have access to more than one organization's samples, you can limit that search to one or more of those organizations. You can also limit your search to one sample domain, such as safe drinking water samples or clinical samples. You could further narrow your search by the collector name for environmental or safe drinking water samples. It's best to put the collector's last name within asterisks in case it is spelled differently on the collection form or their first name is included. It's also possible to search by a collection location for environmental, safe drinking water, or animal samples. Once again, you would probably want to put one of the words in the location within asterisks in case that location is spelled differently on the collection form from sample to sample. For patient samples, if you're only searching for the samples of one patient, it's probably best to search by the last name and or first name of the patient. You could also search by the date of birth of the patient if you wish. Once you are ready to do your search, click the Find Samples button. If you want to reset your search fields, click the Reset button. The Help button on each screen brings up help text that explains how to use that screen and the functionalities of that screen. Let's search by a collected date range. We click in the Start field, and let's click on the first day of the month. Notice it put the date in the format of a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. The date has to be in this format. Using the calendar will put the date in the proper format. You can search by a range of dates by clicking in the End field. If we click today's date, which is highlighted in yellow on the calendar, that date will get inserted. Then we would click Find Samples. Many hospitals want to search by a release date range. They would like to download all test results that have been released in the last 24 hours. To do that, click in the Start field for release date and click yesterday's date. And then let's click midnight. Notice it put that date and the time after it into the Start field. We want to end our range in the current date and time. So we click on the End field, and then we can click Today at the bottom of the calendar to do that. Once again, click on the Find Samples button to find your samples. The following list of 7 samples have met my search criteria. In the first column is the accession number of the sample, which is the State Hygienic Lab's lab number. The next column shows the collected date of the sample. The collected time is usually part of the date if it was provided on the test request form. In the reference information column, the patient's last name, first name will be shown for patient samples. Sometimes the middle name is also shown. The second row will show the patient's DOB or date of birth, followed by the gender of the patient. Environmental samples will usually show the collector's name and the collection location of that sample. Animal or rabies samples will show the type of animal that was tested. Safe drinking water samples will show the collector's name and usually the collection location where the sample was taken. In the additional information column, for clinical samples, the ordering provider's last name, first name is usually shown, followed by the ordering facility. For environmental samples, the address and the city and sometimes state of the collection location is displayed. For animal samples, the ordering provider and ordering facility are displayed. And for safe drinking water samples, the public water supply ID - public water supply name are displayed. The next column shows the testing status of the sample. A clock means in progress. This means that there are some pending tests on that sample. But there also has to be at least one result available, or the sample would not show up on the final report view screen. A green check mark means that all the tests on that sample have been completed and can be viewed. If there is an environmental project attached to the sample, it will be displayed in the project column. The attachment column will show if any documents are attached to the sample. You will normally see a paper clip with a red circle next to it. The number in the red circle tells you how many documents are attached to the sample. If we click on this one that has a 2 in the circle, that means 2 documents are attached. This pops up the attachment screen that shows the accession number and the collected date of the sample. The 2 documents that are attached are then listed, along with the date that they were created. This first attachment starts with the letters TRF, which stands for Test Request Form. The accession number follows, and then the form ID of the test request form. If I click on it, I can pop up the test request form that was sent in with the sample and review it. This second document that is attached is a final report. It starts with the words final report, followed by the accession number, the revision number, which in this case is revision 0, and then the date and time that this final report was generated. Each time a test is released, a new final report is generated. Other documents that you may see listed as attachments include email correspondence between yourself and SHL staff, and result reports from send-out labs. In order to run your final reports, check the box in front of each accession number for what you want to report. If you want reports for all the displayed samples, you can use the Select All button. Then click the Run Report button to generate the reports. The first time you do this, you may have to always allow pop-ups for this website. The final reports will be displayed then as PDF documents which you can print or save. As I mentioned previously, you can also download your results into a spreadsheet. Click on the Spreadsheet View button. The search fields on the Spreadsheet View search screen are the same as those on the Final Report search screen. Once again, it is probably easiest to search by a collected date range or release date range. Then click the Continue to Report Fields button when you are ready to execute your search. On the Spreadsheet View selection screen, you will see a list of columns that you can output into your spreadsheet. The first 3 rows pertain to any type of sample domain. These are the sample level fields, analysis fields, and organization fields. While you can individually select the fields you are most interested in, the easiest thing is probably to click the Select All buttons for these 3 rows. The next 4 rows only pertain to a specific sample domain. So if you are interested in displaying clinical samples, you can choose those. Other fields available are those for animal or rabies samples, environmental samples, and safe drinking water samples. Since these are clinical samples, I'm only going to display the clinical fields. For the test analytes, you need to select at least one test analyte. So if I'm interested in 2019 novel coronavirus RNA, I could check that. If I'm interested in all the analytes, I can click the Select All button at the bottom. Some samples also have auxiliary data that are attached to the samples. I can pick the ones I want or just select all. If I want to show all of these test analytes in a single row per analysis, I can check that box. Finally, click the Run Report button. A spreadsheet of your data is generated. The first row has all the column headings. Like any spreadsheet, you can sort and filter it to look for the data of interest. If you want to use your query in the future, you can save it. Click the Save Query button. A pop-up window will be displayed, and you can choose where you want to save this query as an XML file. We'd recommend saving it on your desktop or maybe one of your network drives. If you want to run the query again in the future, you just click Open Query and navigate to where you saved it. The query information will be automatically inputted into the search fields. The next screen is called the test status. Searching this screen will let you know which of your tests are pending. To search for pending tests, it is probably best to search by a collected date range or one of the other search fields. You would not want to search by release date because that would only show you tests that have already been released and the results are available. The test status view screen will show you information related to your samples. The first column shows the accession number of the sample. In the next column, you can see sample and test description information. For clinical samples, the patient's last name, first name is displayed. The collector's name is usually displayed for environmental and safe drinking water samples. The type of animal is usually displayed for animal samples. Each subsequent row for that sample shows the test name, method name that has been assigned to that sample. And then its status, whether it's in progress or whether that test has been completed. Note that you can have some completed tests and some in progress tests on the same sample. This is followed by the collected date and usually the time that the sample was collected. The next column shows the date and time that the sample was received at the State Hygienic Laboratory. Client reference is shown in the next column. The last column displays quality assurance events, known as QA events. They are numbered, and these numbers are shown as footnotes over in the sample/test description column. If the number is after the sample identifier, such as the patient's name, that means that QA event applies to the entire sample, as in the case of the first one. The second QA event only follows this first test. That means that it only applies to this first test and not to the other two tests on this sample. The fourth button opens up the email notification screen. You can sign you or your coworkers up for two types of emails. The first type will list the samples that we received from your organization. This email comes out twice a day. The second type of email notification comes out hourly and lists the samples that have had tests that have been released. This means that you have results available that you can see on the final report or spreadsheet view screens. You can sign up for either or both types of these notifications. To do so, click the Add button at the bottom. Pick the organization that you want to sign up for. If you want to sign up for all of your organizations, you'll have to enter this screen each time for each organization. Enter your email address and then check the received or released boxes, or both if you want both types of email notifications. You can also limit emails by a filter. You do not need to enter anything in the filter by or filter match fields if you want to receive emails for all samples submitted by your organization. If you only want to receive emails for certain samples submitted by your organization, you can do that by picking a filter by. This allows you to filter the emails by a client reference, collector name, provider name, or project. After you pick the filter by, you have to enter the search term that you want in the filter match field. Then click the OK button when you are done. After you have entered that information, click the Save Changes box to save the changes. You can edit any of the existing rows by clicking in them and then clicking Save Changes. If you want to remove a row, just click on that row and then click the Remove button. The Help button will show you more information about how to use this screen. The last screen of the OpenELIS Web Portal is the COVID-19 electronic test request form. This screen can be used to electronically order COVID-19 testing. It cannot be used to order any other kind of testing at this time. The fields with asterisks are fields that are required to have information in them. You must pick an organization to report the results to. So if you have access to more than one organization, make sure you pick the one that is submitting the sample. Enter the ordering healthcare provider's last name and first name. It is also helpful if you could enter the national provider ID and phone number of that provider. The collection date of the sample is required. Choose the test that you want. Currently, 2 tests are being offered. The coronavirus real-time PCR diagnostic test and the COVID-2 IgG antibody test. After you pick the test, you need to pick the sample type that you are sending. If you are ordering both types of tests, you can add the second test under number 2. Next, enter the patient information. The client reference is usually the medical record number or chart ID of the patient. That's an optional field. You must enter the last name, first name, date of birth, and complete address information of the patient. The patient's phone number, gender, race, and ethnicity are optional, but are valuable from an epidemiologic perspective. The last section asks you some questions that are required by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, for coronavirus testing. You just click in the field and pick the selection that you want. It is possible to leave one of these questions empty if you don't know the information. Finally, click the Generate Form button at the bottom. A PDF copy of the test request form should pop up. If it does not, you will have to always allow pop-ups for this website and then re-enter your information. After the form is generated, the patient information and the information required by HHS will be blanked out because this information is specific to each patient. However, the reporting organization, provider, collection date, and test and sample types information will stay in place because that usually does not change from patient to patient. You can change these fields, however, if you need to. And then for each patient that you enter, always click the Generate Form button so that you can pop up and print out the test request form to send to the state hygienic lab with the sample. The account menu in the upper right-hand corner of the web portal displays your account settings. Here is your name, followed by the username of your web portal account. This link allows you to change your password, and you can log out of the web portal from this link. It is important to always log out of the OpenELIS Web Portal when you are finished so that unauthorized users will not have access to your data. In the Preferences section, you can adjust the font size of the text. You can also change the display mode Right now I am on light. I can change it to calm or dark. In the document section, you will see links to various forms and web portal user guides. The newspaper icon with a red number next to it will display various news articles from the State Hygienic Lab pertaining to its testing procedures. The number corresponds to the number of news articles. I can close this page from here. At the bottom of the screen, you will see the letters FAQ, which stands for Frequently Asked Questions. These are some of the frequently asked questions by web portal users, and if I click on the arrow, I can display each answer. Our contact information, phone number, and email address is displayed at the bottom if you have any questions or need any assistance with the OpenELIS Web Portal.